Sorry, this is a bit small. Let me read it to you. It's the Message version of our verse today. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Taking my kids swimming when they were little was one of my favourite things to do. And I started when they were literally weeks old. As soon as they'd had their first immunisations, we were in the pool. And I can remember the moment that their tiny pink feet touched the water in the swimming pool. And there's that tension as to when they decide whether they're going to enjoy this experience of being surrounded by fairly cold water. And I was learning to trust the swim nappy and hope that it held any eventualities. And then as they grew up, they started to use inflatables and pool noodles, like that one. And they gained confidence. And then there came that moment where I stood them on the side to jump in. Now, I could have cleared the space so that they had room to just go for it. I could have held a hoop in front of them so that they had more focus as to where they were going to jump. But what most parents tend to do is to stand in front of their child, hold out their arms, and say, "Come on, jump to me." And this is exactly what Jesus is saying at the beginning of this verse. You see, the Pharisees had been very good at drawing people to the law because it was the measure of righteousness, the measure of how faithful people were being to the Lord. And Paul tells us in Romans that the law is holy, that God's commandments are holy and righteous and good. But the law also points out our sin. And John Bunyan reflects on this, and he says, "To run and work the law commands, but gives us neither feet or hands." So this invitation from Jesus is to him, a person, not a law, a person, to love personified, not to a set of rules. We're jumping into his arms. And have you noticed the next phrase, that Jesus knows how the people are feeling? He knows that they are tired and burned out and heavy laden. Have you ever worked for somebody in authority over you who just is asking more of you without really recognizing and having no regard for the plates that you're already spinning? Jesus is not asking us to become more righteous because he is our righteousness. Where we are unable to fulfill all that we know that we should do, he stretches out his arms, first on the cross, and pays for all our failings. And then he stretches them towards us. And he says, "Come to me. I see you. I will give you rest from all the ways that you are striving to please me." Verse 29 says, "Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." See, Jesus is careful not just to disregard the law. His yoke is a sign for me that he still intends his disciples to submit to him and his teachings, but that again, he invites me to that intimacy. He says, "Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart." And so when we come to Jesus in submission, even when that can sometimes cause us to squirm and resist at times, it's there that we will find rest for our souls. Now, later in Matthew, Jesus rebukes the Pharisees again, and he says, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do exactly as they tell you, but do not do what they do, because they don't practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on people's shoulders, but they're not willing to lift a finger to move them. So when we are discipling other people, we must be mindful of these warnings. As we draw people in, let's make sure we're not just encouraging them to attend church or to read the Bible or to pray. Good those things are. Let's make sure that we are inviting them to Jesus. Help them learn from his teaching and live this gloriously burden-free life that he invites us to. That John Bunyan quote has an ending. It says, "To run and work the law commands, but gives us neither feet nor hands. But better news the gospel brings. It bids us fly and gives us wings." Now, as independent beings with free will, humans have been known to deal with issues like pride, stubbornness, self-reliance, feeling a tinge of conviction myself. We're taught to be strong, pursue our goals, take care of ourselves. So taking on someone else's yoke seems a bit counterproductive, but not with Jesus. Through sharing his yoke, we can experience his light burden and easy yoke in the following ways. Firstly, by moving in the same direction as Jesus. You see, when our human frailties take over, we tend to veer towards our own direction. Questions and doubts may cause us to change paths and also to seek if there's an easier way in life. But when we stay yoked to Jesus, we move in his direction. We stay in step with him. We won't have to question whether or not we're in God's will when we follow where Jesus leads us. And secondly, being refreshed in Jesus when there is still more work to be done. The words, "and you will find rest for your souls," are actually taken from Jeremiah 6:16. It says, "This is what the Lord says, stop at the crossroads and look around. Ask for the old godly ways and walk in it. Travel its path and you will find rest for your souls." Now, as I take on my new role at the end of this month, it's really easy for me to fall into the trap of working hard in an effort to do good, which will result in total exhaustion. I'm very aware that that could happen. There's so much to be done. There's so much good stuff to be done. So for me, this verse is really personal at the moment. I sense Jesus speaking to me, making sure that I am taking on his yoke, not the expectations of others, and not even the expectations of myself, but to do what he directs me to do. So how about you? If the worship band want to come back and you can begin to play, I'd like us to just reflect on this verse together so that we're not just taking in information, but we actually have a time to respond in our hearts. So if you want to close your eyes, or you can just sit and just reflect on what's been shared this morning. Are you carrying a yoke that is weighing you down? Are you striving in your attempts to be his disciple? if you feel like that's where you're at, in your mind, remove the yoke that is weighing you down, just like Cyril took it off this morning, and put it down. And picture the face of Jesus inviting you to come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. And now, if you are willing, in your mind, submit yourself to Jesus. Maybe bow your head to receive the yoke that he has for you. And hear him saying to you, take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light.